President Trump making his case for tax reform, saying it is key for economic and wage growth. But what did he say that we didn't already know? And can he get it done? Andrew Friedman, principal at the Washington Update, joins us now to talk about that. Welcome back, Andrew. Nice to have you here.
Thanks. It was great to be here.
When you listened to the president today, you know, he's on the stump trying to sell his tax package. Was there anything new in there that we didn't already know what his goals were?
No, I mean, the president addressed one important aspect of tax reform, which is lowering tax rates. If you lower tax rates, people and businesses keep more of their earnings, they spend that additional earnings, and that buoys the economy. But there's a second part of tax reform that's harder than just reducing rates. And he alluded to that, which is simplification, which really means getting rid of or curtailing tax deductions. And that allows tax reform to be revenue neutral for the government. You have a lower rate, but you have a broader base that brings in the same revenue. Well, he didn't tell us what tax deductions he wants to change.
Right.
We know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
No, my thought was we've heard a little bit that they want to eliminate the deduction for state and local taxes. We've heard that from the Hill and the White House. But then what do? Mortgage interest deduction, oil and gas depletion allowances, everything's on the table, but we don't have any details yet.
So would you divide it up into two parts of a pie? There's tax relief, which is
Yes.
lowering the tax burden. But then there's tax reform, and it seems to me the latter is going to be much more difficult for Congress to achieve because you have all these lobbying interests. For instance, you mentioned the mortgage deduction. The real estate lobby is going to be actively pushing back against that. What are the odds, do you think, that Congress will go along with the tax relief, but not necessarily with the tax reform?
Well, I think you really nailed it, Sue. That's exactly right. Whenever you identify a deduction that's going to be changed, people come out of the woodwork and object, and that's why we haven't seen tax reform since 1986. The easy thing to do if you can't get reform is to say, okay, we're going to reduce tax rates, have tax relief, everybody pays less, or most people do, and we go home. The problem with that is it adds to the federal deficit. We're already trying to increase the debt ceiling to allow the government to borrow more money. We're going to have to keep borrowing more and more if tax receipts go down. I think there's a really good possibility this year we see a tax cut without tax reform. That lets Republicans say, well, we cut taxes, we did what we promised, but it really kicks the can down the road for how are you going to deal with a government deficit.
Right, exactly. So what does that do then for market volatility? Because the market has been counting on both parts of that pie, the tax relief and also the tax reform.
I actually think the market, at least in the short term, would be satisfied with tax relief. It means businesses keep more of their earnings. I think that's what they're really looking for. The concern about the deficit, which will be a problem for the market down the road, probably doesn't hit that much this year. So it seems to me one way or another we get tax relief. That satisfies the markets. Yeah, it'll be volatile until then. We got to deal with the debt ceiling and keeping the government open. But one way or another we'll get through that. We'll see a tax cut. I think the markets will be happy with what happens.
On that note, the optimistic Andrew Friedman. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. He's with the Washington Update.